Hello and welcome to another episode of Interview with a Schizophrenic. I'm your host, Duncan Samuel Singer, and today I have the great pleasure of welcoming back Frank. Frank was the first person I interviewed on this show, so he was quite instrumental in getting this podcast started. Um, so I interviewed Frank over 2 years ago now. Frank is from New York. He's a Reiki healer. He was at the time. He did have drug addiction issues when he was younger. He's got a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. Um, I think when we talked, it was apparent that Frank had a deep spiritual understanding, um, and which I share, which is quite interesting because because you can have different beliefs, but I think when it comes to spirituality, there's always a common theme. So that's quite interesting. So, welcome, Frank. How are you doing? It's good to see you back.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to be back. I'm doing pretty darn well. I'm kind of in a state of recovery now. I've been on the road for the past 3 months, and so I'm just kind of getting back into my stationary groove.
Yeah, coming back to stability, I guess. So,
Yeah.
Frank, why didn't you? It's been a couple of years. I know you went on your trip, but why didn't you talk about what you would like to talk about since we last spoke? Um, and we can take it from there.
Okay. Well, I guess I can kind of start by explaining a little bit why I took this trip. For the past 5 or 6 years, I've been really developing my ability to heal people on a holistic level. I kind of figured out how to do all this through my own healing and healing myself, and really coming to understand what the true nature of reality is. And so, as I've been healing other people with issues that are similar to the issues that I've been dealing with in my own journey, I decided that it was important to start collecting evidence and gathering information about the true nature of our reality and what actually exists out there. And so that's kind of why I got into this whole trip. It kind of started actually. I have a good friend of mine who was having some pretty severe um, health issues in New Mexico. And so the trip started by me going out to help her with that. But then it also kind of turned into this whole 3 month paranormal expedition, if you will. And my goal was really to understand better what exists out there, and then to also provide evidence to people who are trying to understand what exists out there. And I've really come to understand that the paranormal and schizophrenia pretty much go hand in hand. And I think the more people know and understand what exists, the better they can be at protecting themselves, at blocking the negativity that's out there while still engaging in the immense positivity, the love and light that exists out there.
You know, what was I going to say? Yeah, yeah, the reality of nature of reality, because most of us are stuck in sort of like a programmed state of earning a living, just the ability to survive life in a very sort of narrow-minded view, um, whereas whereas the nature reality is much broader and a bigger picture in spiritual terms, in that there is like a force of spirit out there, which we can all tap into. And it's just,
Definitely.
and it's just, it's taken away from the stress we put under ourselves on an everyday basis. If we step away from that and we trust in spirit, there is that path. So your trip, paranormal, because that's kind of, are you talking about after dead communication?
Well, I guess I'm talking about paranormal from multiple levels. I mean, I was documenting alien life. I was also documenting spirits, ghosts,
We seem to have lost
people who've.
Frank.
I'm sorry?
So you just cut off there. You just got cut
Oh,
off.
sorry
You,
about
you
that.
you were saying it was paranormal on multiple levels, and then I think you got cut off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm really trying to document paranormal, yeah, multiple levels. I was documenting alien life, as well as spirits, life after death, if you will, as well as the many various other types of entities that exist out there on a multidimensional level, like demons and other things like that, parasitic entities, stuff like that, which I think goes back into what we as schizophrenics deal with, which is typically um, issues with parasitic entities, entities that are attaching themselves to us, so that they can then ultimately feed on the negative energy they produce by creating suffering within us, which is where a lot of delusions, I think, come from, that
Mm.
people who are schizophrenic can deal with.
Yeah, I've heard about this idea of the parasitic spiritual entity which attaches to our, I guess, our soul or our spirit, and that is what causes a lot of the interferences. Um, yeah, I'm not entirely sure on my opinion on that. Um, to be honest with you, I don't really think of it that way. But yeah, I don't really think of it that way because I guess in a way, I don't accept that something's attached to me. Um, but maybe it is. But
Well,
yeah,
and
yeah. Sorry, yeah.
yeah, totally. Excuse me. I think within the schizophrenic community, we've kind of been programmed to believe um, that Western medicine is kind of the only route, because I think Western medicine pretty much the only answer that they have for schizophrenics is that what we experience doesn't actually exist, and that it's ultimately a product of our broken minds, and that um, there are things that we can do, like take meds to facilitate unbreaking that or healing it to some level. But my experiences have taught me over a long period of time, over a decade, that what I'm experiencing is coming from outside of me, and that there is something else further going on. And actually, that's what led me to get into the world of holistic medicine. And through my practices, I've learned how to release these entities that I'm talking about from my own being, and also to learn how to protect myself from them. And I've gone from being somebody who was totally and completely debilitated by my schizophrenia, to being someone who now is trying to get a small business off the ground. I moved thousands of miles from where I used to live, and I'm now capable of having these resources available so that I can continue this journey that I'm on to research and understand the true nature of reality better. And I've done entity removal work on myself as well as on other people, and have had some pretty good results with it. I know earlier I was talking about the friend of mine who was in New Mexico who needed my help. We did an entity removal on her, and when I got there, she had pretty much lost all of her friends. She lost her place to live. She was living in her car, and she's had multiple surgeries on her lower back from issues that she's had, which is where I determined that the entity had attached itself to. So she was dealing with chronic lower back pain, things that kept her in bed. They were so severe. But after my work with her was done, although it's still continuing, but after the ceremony that we did, all of those issues have pretty much become non-existent. She now has a place to live. She's finding and reconnecting with new people as well as people that were from her past, and she doesn't really have back pain anymore. She hasn't. That's not something she's really dealing with anymore. So it seems to me like things are moving along pretty well for her, and so. I think it can be difficult to open our minds to what potentially exists out there. But I think an open mind is much better than a closed mind in the long run, and we can learn a great deal about things just by keeping an open mind about things and about what we may not fully understand. And I also know too that I've learned a great deal in these past years, but I also know that there's a great deal that I still don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I in terms of sort of spiritual, and in our first interview we talked about synchronicities, and
Okay,
I get a lot of synchronicities recently, really blatant ones, where just blatant one. It will be when I'll be watching the TV, and I'll get or either I'll get a precognition, or I'll say something and it's repeated on the TV a few seconds
totally.
later. That sort of thing. Really blatant synchronicities, but not just yeah, with all sorts of things, and that just to me makes me think that there is some sort of position that I'm in which may be correct spiritually, in the sense that it's kind of, it's almost as if my thoughts are getting encouraged by spirit, like I'm the receiver, and the thoughts are coming in, and then and it's related to the local environment in a way.
Totally.
um, yeah, so it's kind of interesting because it doesn't disturb me. It just makes me think, that's that's interesting,
Oh
and
yeah.
a completely spiritual experience, but it's an experience that as schizophrenics we commonly go through.
Oh yeah. I experience that all the time, all the time. I have come to find in my own understanding of synchronicities like that. I think many times that is just the universe, the universal consciousness, if you will, kind of letting us know that we're on the right track. We're
Yeah,
making
exactly,
wise choices
exactly.
and we're moving forward. Because I also I don't feel negative when those kinds of things happen. I end up feeling reassured almost.
Mm, exactly.
Um,
Me too. Yeah, me too.
yeah. So yeah, and this is stuff like these synchronicities and things. These are things that Western medicine can't really explain. And ultimately experiences like this and other experiences similar to things like this, but that involve more than just me, I guess. They are what are fueling my desire to understand better what's going on, and ultimately why I ended up doing this whole trip. And I can say too that so many things have happened or did happen on this trip, that leads me to believe, just me specifically, I have no doubt that there are things out there that are feeding on us, on our energy bodies or soul, if you want to call it that. And that we can do things about that. We can do things to correct that so that we're not having negative experiences.
Mm,
I know I used to see schizophrenia as my greatest weakness. I used to be ashamed of it. I used to do anything that I could to hide it from other people. And now I see it as my greatest asset. And it's something that I spend a lot of time caring for and developing and understanding so that I can use it to my advantage instead of letting it be the thing that keeps me suppressed and debilitated.
you know, so you're talking about your friend in New Mexico, and so what you did for her
Hmm.
is completely in line with the spiritual path, which is helping another person who's vulnerable. That's completely, spot on spiritual. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that's because my dad had dementia, and I cared for him when he was dying. doing all that sort of thing. And that to me is being on the spiritual path. And that, so that caring aspect of life
Hmm.
is what it's all about, because that is the empathy and the intuitive enough to understand our human connection. um,
Most definitely.
whereas the non-spiritual types can be quite disturbing in what they say, because they've lost that connection. And so they will say things which are like, what, where did that come from? And that's kind of like, you notice that when you talk to the non-spiritual types, is that they're just in a different universe.
Okay. So yeah, I was talking about how I think people who step away from spiritual guidance, spiritual answers, or getting advice or answers from a higher power, however that may look to somebody. I mean, we all have our unique ideas about what God is or what a higher power could be. But I think that when we step away from that, we ultimately kind of separate ourselves from the rest of the universe, and we see ourselves as disconnected, as separate from everything. And I think that that can make us a little more selfish in our decision making, just because we're only concerning ourselves. And I think that a big part of the reason why people make choices in that way is because we're kind of taught that we are kind of living in a time now where we're programmed to believe that we're separate, that we're alone, that there isn't a grander um, structure to things, and that we have to just be considering ourselves, me,
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
which is ultimately I think not that
Um,
beneficial to us, because I think the more that we understand that we are connected, I think the more we start to see the division that humanity is faced with right now falling away. I think now more than ever we are so divided, and I think that that's something that's being pushed upon us upon our societies, just because we're weaker that way. And so I think who knows, perhaps that's why we're having all these technical issues today,
yeah,
just helping people understand that there's a grander connection, that we are all connected, and that the more we help each other, the more we help ourselves in the end, is kind of how it works.
exactly. And you know, it's like the beauty of life is from our spirit. It's not like we're just a meat and bones animal. And the beauty of life is our expression is in the art, in the music, or in the poetic science. You
Most
know
definitely, I
that
couldn't agree more. Yeah.
the like sort of science theories which are musical and all this sort of thing. That's the beauty of life. It's like if you look at ancient civilizations, such beautiful structures they built. You know, um, it's that, and we've lost that, and we're becoming quite sterile and clinical. Um, yeah, it's difficult because I think the spiritual path is, it probably makes people afraid. I don't know.
Well,
Um,
I think people fear what they don't understand, and I think opening yourself up to spirituality, to multidimensional thinking, to all of this kind of thing, can be very scary. For people who think that they understand things, and then I think when you really start to go through an awakening process, a spiritual awakening, I think one of the things that comes with that is really coming to understand that you don't really understand things, and that you do have to open your mind to things that maybe you thought you had a grip on before. And I think doing that can be really scary for a lot of people.
yeah,
I know it was scary for me. It took me a long time to get to where I am now, and to accept the truth as I see it, and what
yeah.
really exists. It took me a long time to get there.
I can feel that because it's similar for me. It took me a long time. Um,
Yeah, it's a
you know, it's
process.
a it's a process. It's a journey, and I think in terms of schizophrenia, we go through that traumatic experience where where we look for answers and we experience things we can't explain. So there is that. It's intertwined in a way, but
Totally. And I think with schizophrenic specifically, or with the schizophrenic community, I think that there can be kind of conditions placed on our support. I think I know in my own experience, my family has placed conditions saying, "Oh well, we're only going to support you if you're doing what we think you need to be doing," which would be seeing a psychiatrist, dealing with Western medicine, that kind of thing. And I think that anytime I tried to step away from that, saying, "Well, I don't think that that's the right fit for me," and that I'm looking for other answers, they saw that as me indulging in my delusions and that it wasn't healthy and they wouldn't support me and all this stuff. And so you kind of get stuck, or at least I, in my own experiences, kind of got stuck being pushed to either do it this way or not have any support. And in the end, I actually chose to step away and support myself until some of my closer family members were willing to listen and catch on. And now they support me in what I'm trying to do as well. It took them some time as well, though.
Yeah. It's a whole can of worms family, isn't it? With
Oh my
schizophrenia.
goodness.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
It's just a can of worms. I think some of them think that you're faking it. That that sort of thing. Even though it's been like years and you've been in hospital and on meds,
Oh
and
yeah,
and they think, oh, he's just faking it. Or do you know what I mean? That sort of thing, which is
I
it's so
definitely know.
disturbing.
It is, and I get that. I've really tried. I mean, my mom has been my number one fan from the very beginning. She's always been open to trying to understand what I'm going through and listening to me and being open about what I've experienced and in many ways that saved my life many times over because I had that to fall back on, and I know there are many people out there who don't have that. And so um but there is a big chunk of my family who doesn't understand, and they think that they understand, so they don't take the time to listen to what I have to say about it because they think they already know. And so they have all these preconceived notions about what I am experiencing or what I'm not experiencing, or whether or not it's real, or if I'm just faking it for attention, or blah, blah, blah. And they're so stuck in their idea about what I'm experiencing that they're not even willing to be open to hearing what I have to say about
Yeah.
it. And I think
Just
that can,
listening and responding. Yeah, it's just so simple, but it's so difficult for so many people. It
it
really is.
is. It's a tricky thing, that's for sure, on all levels.
So, I think we're almost going to close it here, but I just want to say first, I'm going to ask you, what music do you want me to put on the episode? What kind of genre? What type of music?
Oh, well, I guess I'm open to whatever you're feeling. I'll let you
Okay.
make the decisions on that level. This is your
Okay.
podcast, so I
Yeah, I know, but I try to. I do sort of encourage that when I have a guest, that episode belongs to them, if in a sort of a sense, you know.
well,
Um,
I guess pick something uplifting, I guess. I
okay,
think now more than ever we need to be pushing love and light, these higher vibrational
exactly.
emotions, and ways of thinking and being. And so I'd say whatever it is, make it optimistic.
It's like I had a fever the other day, and I think when you have a fever, it lowers your vibration
Mm,
because the voices were so much more powerful, and when I
mm,
got better, I think my vibration came up again, and then they
okay.
quietened off. So I think when you raise your vibration, you actually get away from the. Does that make sense to you? That sort of
Oh,
idea?
I mean, actually, I could have a whole nother episode talking to you just about this. Yeah, you're spot on with that. I think it's possible too. I know a lot of times when we get sick, it's because we're purging negative energy from us. And so things can become more amplified. We can hear more negative voices and things like that when we're going through a process like that. But I've experienced things on this trip. I used to have these issues with delusions, negative delusions, and things like that. And um, I was experiencing on my trip when I was interacting with entities in these haunted places that I was going to. I would notice that I would start feeling the same way that I would feel before, having these weird delusions, negative delusions, and
Mm.
things like that until I cleansed myself after I was done with the investigation, and then all of that stuff would go away.
Yeah.
So I can definitely relate to what you're talking about there specifically.
Yeah. So Frank, I think we can talk more. So let's try and schedule another episode later in the year. We did have some connection issues this episode, um, so we'll try and sort that out for next time.
Okay.
Um, but it's a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, the
I
pleasure
think
was.
we're talking. I think we're talking about quite. Um, the subject matter is 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 truth, but it's not mainstream, and it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that movement that is going on in the world, where there's a few people who are into spirituality and have experienced it, and we're just trying to show that light, as you say, the love and light, and just try, because I think the people talk about a great shift, don't they?
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so
And
we'll
we're
see.
kind of going through that right now. I think, in the past probably 5 to 10 years, I think more people have opened up to some level of spiritual practice, more so than at any time before in our history. And so I think some good things are coming, as far as that
Yeah.
goes. I feel very optimistic about the future.
Okay, Frank, let's leave it here. It was a good episode, so thank you very much.
Most definitely. Thank you for having me on again. I can't tell you how grateful I am, and I hope that people keep listening. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.